The Grand Synod of the Galactic Concordat was a chamber designed to dwarf the ego of any single sentient being, a vast, hollowed-out geode situated in the asteroid belt of the T-Haller system, its crystalline walls refracting the cold light of distant stars into a kaleidoscope of judgment. The air here was always thin, kept purposely cold to discourage heated outbursts, recycled through filtration systems that smelled faintly of ozone and ancient stone. In the center of the obsidian floor, a stain remained, not of blood, for the execution had been clean, atomized by the focused singularity of the judgment beam, but a stain of memory, a psychic wound in the collective consciousness of the 300 species represented in the tiered shadows of the amphitheater. High Justicar Vrexel, a towering entity of chitin and bioluminescent veins, paced the perimeter of the dais, his 4 primary walking limbs clicking rhythmically against the black glass, a sound that echoed like the ticking of a doomsday clock in the silence that had swallowed the hall. It had been 3 standard cycles since the execution of the Human Envoy, a creature named Kalen Vance, and the silence from the Terran system was not the silence of submission. It was the silence of a predator holding its breath. Vrexel could feel the unease rippling through the gathered delegates, a pheromonal tide of fear that tasted like copper and ash on his sensory tongues. They had expected screaming. They had expected immediate, chaotic retaliation, a flurry of nuclear missiles or crude kinetic bombardment that the Concordat's shield fleets would have swatted away with contemptuous ease. Instead, there was nothing, just the void staring back. "The silence is an insult," Vrexel intoned, his voice amplified by the acoustic geometry of the geode, vibrating in the chest cavities of the mammalian delegates and resonating in the fluid sacs of the aquatic representatives. "We offered them the terms of the vassalage. We offered them the collar of civilization. Their envoy refused. He dared to speak of sovereignty in a galaxy where only the Concordat dictates the boundaries of the stars. His execution was lawful. It was necessary. It was a mercy to show them the futility of resistance before they could drag their primitive species into a war they cannot survive." Vrexel paused, turning his multifaceted eyes toward the darkened sector of the gallery where the military caste, the Warminds, sat in brooding stillness. "And yet the silence persists. It is not the silence of the cowed. It is the silence of calculation." A murmur ran through the assembly, a dissonant hum of agreeing whispers and fearful shifting. The execution of Envoy Vance had been intended as a definitive punctuation mark, a period at the end of humanity's brief sentence on the galactic stage. But the lack of reaction had turned that period into a question mark, one that hung over the Synod like the blade of a guillotine. From the shadows of the military tier, High Admiral Thrakos descended. He was a creature of war, his body encased in a powered exoskeleton of void-hardened alloy, his organic form beneath scarred from 1,000 campaigns against the scourge fleets of the outer rims. Thrakos did not click. He thudded, the heavy gravity boots of his suit cracking the delicate aesthetic of the floor with each step. He stopped before the High Justicar, towering over the political leader, his helmet retracted to reveal a face of leathery gray skin and eyes that burned with the cold fusion of a dying star. "You speak of insults, Justicar," Thrakos rumbled, his voice a grinding tectonic shift. "I speak of strategy. You killed their voice. Now you wonder why they do not speak. You expect a primitive species to lash out like a wounded beast. But I have analyzed the trajectory of their expansion. I have studied the few fragmented data streams we intercepted before the blockade. They are not merely stubborn. They are adaptable, and they are patient." Thrakos turned to face the assembly, his gaze sweeping over the terrified diplomats. "The execution was a mistake, not because it was cruel. Cruelty is a tool of statecraft, but because it was premature. You cut off the head before you measured the size of the beast." Vrexel bristled, his bioluminescence flaring a bright, angry crimson. "Are you suggesting the Concordat fears a single system of soft-skinned bipeds? We control the hyperlanes. We harness the energy of pulsars. They have barely crawled out of their gravity well. The execution was a demonstration of absolute power. If they do not respond, it is because they are paralyzed by terror." "Or they are loading their gun," Thrakos countered, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "My scanners have detected energy spikes in the Sol sector, anomalous readings, not weapons fire, not shield harmonics, something else. Something that distorts the local spacetime manifold in ways our physics engines struggle to interpret. We cannot wait for them to break their silence. We must break it for them." The Admiral gestured to the holographic projector in the center of the room, and the image of a ship materialized, a vessel of such grotesque magnitude and predatory design that several weaker-willed delegates averted their eyes. It was the Ethelgard, the flagship of the Concordat's punitive fleet, a dreadnought the size of a small moon, bristling with singularity projectors and matter dissimulators. It was a ship designed not for conquest, but for extinction. "I will take the Ethelgard," Thrakos declared, the hologram rotating slowly above his open palm. "I will take the instrument of our wrath directly to their homeworld. I will park it in their atmosphere, displace their oceans, and shadow their cities. I will demand they kneel. If they refuse, I will not execute an envoy. I will execute the planet." The proposal hung in the air, heavy and inevitable. This was the Concordat's way. When diplomacy failed, when fear failed, they applied overwhelming force. The Ethelgard was a legend in the galaxy, a ship that had ended civilization simply by arriving in orbit. It was the physical manifestation of the Concordat's right to rule. Vrexel looked at the hologram, then at Thrakos, and finally gave a curt nod. "Go," the Justicar commanded. "Take the vengeance of the galaxy to them. Show them that the death of their envoy was but the first raindrop in the storm. Bring them to their knees, Admiral, or bury them." The journey to the Sol system was a passage through the abyss of the soul. The Ethelgard did not travel through hyperspace in the conventional sense. It tore through the fabric of reality, creating a tunnel of distorted physics that sickened the crew and bent light into nausea-inducing spirals. Admiral Thrakos stood on the bridge, a cavernous command center suspended in the heart of the ship, surrounded by streams of data and the hushed whispers of his tactical officers. The journey took weeks of subjective time, though outside the bubble of the drive, only moments passed. Thrakos spent the time reviewing the file on Kalen Vance, the executed human. The footage of the execution played on a loop on his private terminal. The human had stood before the High Justicar unchained, his back straight, his eyes clear. When the verdict was read, death for the crime of technological heresy and refusal to submit to the caste system, Vance had not pleaded. He had not cried out. He had looked directly into the camera, into the eyes of the galaxy watching him, and he had smiled. It was a sad smile devoid of arrogance, filled with a pity that Thrakos found infuriating. Why did he pity us? Thrakos wondered, his gauntleted hand gripping the rail of the command walkway. He was the one about to be atomized. He was the representative of a species about to be crushed. What did he know that we do not? Approaching the heliopause, the sensory officer announced, her voice trembling slightly. The officer was of the Sion caste, sensitive to psychic fluctuations, and she had been complaining of a headache since they entered the sector. "Transitioning to real space in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The universe snapped back into focus. The swirling kaleidoscope of the warp vanished, replaced by the stark, diamond-hard clarity of the Sol system. The yellow dwarf star burned brightly in the distance, indifferent to the arrival of the world killer. Thrakos leaned forward, his eyes scanning the tactical display. "Report," he barked. "Where is their fleet? Where are their orbital defense platforms?" "Nothing, Admiral," the tactical officer replied, confusion evident in his tone. "Scanners show civilian traffic, commercial haulers moving between the third and fourth planets, mining operations in the asteroid belt. No military signatures detected, no shield grids raising. It is as if they do not know we are here." Thrakos frowned. The Ethelgard was not a stealth ship. Its arrival released enough gravitational radiation to ring the sensors of any civilization capable of spaceflight. "They know," Thrakos muttered. "They are ignoring us. It is another insult." He clenched his fist. "Set course for the third planet. Maximum combat speed. Charge the main singularity cannons. If they want to play the game of indifference, we will burn their apathy away." The massive ship surged forward, its engines pushing it deep into the gravity well of the sun. They passed the gas giants, ignoring the mining outposts that hung like jewels in the void. They passed the rusted red sphere of Mars, where terraforming towers twinkled like distant candles. Still no challenge, no communications, no panicked hail begging for mercy. The silence of the humans was becoming a physical weight, pressing against the hull of the Ethelgard harder than the vacuum of space. As Earth grew in the viewport, a swirling marble of blue and white, Thrakos felt a chill that nothing to do with the temperature of the bridge. The planet was beautiful, teeming with life, vibrant and fragile. It looked defenseless. And yet the closer they got, the more the Sion officer wept, clutching her head, whispering about a song that was too loud to hear. "Take us into the atmosphere," Thrakos ordered, his voice stealing the crew. "Hover over their primary command center. The coordinates of their United Nations were in the Envoy's file. We land there." The descent of the Ethelgard was a catastrophic event in itself. The ship was 5 kilometers long, a jagged spear of alien metal. As it pierced the atmosphere, the displacement of air created hurricane-force winds that flattened forests and whipped the oceans into frenzy. Clouds were incinerated by the heat of the reentry shields. The sky over the North American continent turned a bruised purple, the sun blotted out by the shadow of the Leviathan. The ship groaned as it fought the planet's gravity, its repulsor engines firing with the force of 1,000 nuclear detonations, controlled and focused downward. They descended over the designated coordinates, not a military base but a sprawling complex of glass and steel in a city rebuilt from old wars. Geneva, the city of diplomats. The irony was not lost on Thrakos. He was bringing a warship to the heart of their peace. The ship halted 2,000 feet above the city, its shadow casting an eclipse over the streets below. The engines hummed a low, destructive note that rattled the windows of every building for 50 miles. "Open a channel," Thrakos commanded. "Broadband, all frequencies, every screen, every device on this planet." The communications officer complied. Thrakos stared into the pickup, his image projected to billions of humans simultaneously. "People of Earth," he began, his voice translated by the ship's AI into perfect, unaccented English. "I am High Admiral Thrakos of the Galactic Concordat. Your envoy, Kalen Vance, was executed for crimes against the Galactic Order. You have failed to submit to our judgment. We have come to rectify your error. You have 1 hour to surrender your government, your military, and your sovereignty to the Concordat. If you refuse, this ship will reduce your world to ash." This is not a negotiation. This is an ultimatum. He cut the feed. He waited. He expected the panic to start now. He expected the desperate pleas. 1 minute passed, then 2, then 10. "Admiral," the communications officer said, his voice flat with disbelief. "We are receiving a hail." "Put it through," Thrakos sneered. "Let us hear them beg." The main screen flickered to life. It was not a general nor a president in a bunker. It was a man sitting at a simple wooden desk. He was older, his hair silver, his face lined with the deep grooves of a life spent in deep thought. He wore a simple gray suit. Behind him, through a large window, Thrakos could see the Ethelgard hovering in the sky, a dark monster blocking out the sun. The man was not looking at the ship. He was looking into the camera, his eyes calm, terrifyingly serene. "Admiral Thrakos," the man said. His voice was soft, melodic, a stark contrast to the Admiral's grinding tone. "I am Director Aris Thorne. We received your message. We also received the ashes of Kalen Vance, which you so kindly jettisoned into the void after his execution. We recovered them. He has been buried." Thrakos blinked. They recovered the ashes from deep space. In 3 days, that was impossible. "You defy us, Director," Thrakos growled. "You speak of burials when you should be speaking of surrender. Do you see the weapon above your head? Do you understand that I can end your history with a single command?" "I see a ship," Thorne said, glancing over his shoulder at the massive vessel as if it were a mild-weather inconvenience. "It is a Class 4 dreadnought based on the antiquated designs of the Proximan shipyards. Heavy plating, singularity-based weaponry, poor thermal regulation. It is a hammer, Admiral, a very large, very heavy hammer, but we are not nails." Thorne turned back to the camera, leaning forward slightly. "You came here expecting revenge. You came here thinking we would be angry about Envoy Vance. You misunderstand us, Admiral. We are not angry. We are grieving, but we are not vengeful." "Then submit," Thrakos roared, slamming his fist onto the console. "If you have no fight in you, then kneel." "We do not fight because there is no war," Thorne said gently. "There is only a misunderstanding of scale. Admiral, you believe you are the apex of the galaxy. You believe the Concordat is the final word in power. You executed Vance because he tried to tell you otherwise. He tried to warn you. He didn't refuse your vassalage because we are arrogant. He refused it because we cannot be subject to a law that is smaller than our own." "Smaller," Thrakos laughed, a harsh barking sound. "We span the galaxy. You are dirt scratchers on a single." "Iraq." "Are we?" Thorne asked. "Admiral, look at your sensors. Look closely at the energy spikes you detected in the sector. You thought they were anomalies. Look again." Thrakos signaled the tactical officer. "Do as he says. Magnify the readings." The officer's hands flew over the controls. The main holographic display shifted, zooming out from Earth, past the Moon, past Mars, out to the edge of the Uit cloud. The readings were there, subtle but undeniable. A web, a lattice of energy that didn't just surround the solar system, it permeated it. It was a Dyson swarm of microscopic satellites, trillions of them, cloaked and silent, forming a network of such complexity that the ship's computer had dismissed it as background radiation. But now, focused upon, the pattern emerged. It was a containment field, a shield. Not to keep things out, but to keep something in, or to keep the universe safe from what was inside. "What is this?" Thrakos whispered. "We call it the cradle," Thorn explained, his voice still calm, still devoid of fear. "You see, Admiral, humanity solved the riddle of the unified field theory 300 years ago. We didn't expand outward because we didn't need to. We expanded inward. We mastered matter programming. We mastered quantum entanglement on a macro scale. The ship you are sitting in, the Ethelgard, it is currently floating in our atmosphere because we allow it to float. If we cease to maintain the local gravity constant around your hull, you would crumple under your own mass in a nanosecond." Thrakos felt a cold sweat break out under his exoskeleton. "Bluffing," he hissed. "If you had this power, you would have stopped the execution. You would have saved your envoy." Thorn's eyes saddened. Kalen Vance volunteered. He knew the Concordat operates on fear and blood. He knew that if we simply appeared with our full capabilities, you would view us as an existential threat. You would unite the galaxy in a suicidal war against us to destroy what you couldn't understand. We did not want to kill you. So Kalen went to you defenseless to offer a hand. He tried to guide you gently. You killed him, and in doing so, you proved that you are not ready for the truth. But his death served a purpose. It brought you here. It brought the Ethelgard here, the most powerful ship in your fleet. To destroy you, Thrakos yelled, though his confidence was fracturing. "No," Thorn said, "to be upgraded." Before Thrakos could process the words, the alarms on the bridge screamed. "Admiral, systems losing coherence," the engineer shouted. "The singularity core, it's desynchronizing. The containment fields are dropping." "Fire," Thrakos screamed. "Fire the main cannon." "I can't," the tactical officer wailed. "The weapon isn't responding, the software. It's rewriting itself. Alien code, human code, it's flooding the system. It's bypassing the firewalls like they aren't even there." On the screen, Director Thorn stood up. He walked to the window and looked up at the ship. "Admiral, please instruct your crew to stand down. We are currently venting your waste heat into a subdimensional pocket to prevent you from cooking our atmosphere. We are also optimizing your engine output. You were wasting 40% of your energy on inefficient containment. We fixed it." Thrakos watched his displays in horror. The red warning lights were turning green. The erratic hum of the engines smoothed into a purr of perfect harmonic resonance. The ship felt lighter, stronger. The weapon systems powered down, but the shields flared to an intensity the Concordat had never achieved. The humans weren't attacking. They were fixing the ship. They were taking the ultimate weapon of the enemy and tuning it like a master luthier tuning a cheap violin. "Why?" Thrakos' breath sinking into his command chair. "You could have crushed us. You could have turned us off. Why improve us?" Thorn turned back to the camera. The look on his face was no longer just sad. It was grave. It was the look of a man who has held a heavy door closed for a very long time and is finally asking for help to prop it up. "Because, Admiral, the revenge you spoke of in your title, the vengeance of the galaxy, it is coming, but not from us and not for us." Thorn touched a button on his desk. "We didn't stay in our solar system to hide. We stayed here to prepare. We have been listening to the dark between the stars for a long time. There is a signal, an ancient one. It originates from the galactic core, from the region your Concordat calls the Silent Zone." Thrakos stiffened. The Silent Zone was forbidden. Religious texts spoke of it as the tomb of gods. "The zone is empty," Thrakos said automatically. "It was," Thorn corrected, "until you fired the judgment beam, the energy signature of your execution weapon. It resonates on a specific frequency, a frequency used by the old machines, the ones that cleansed this galaxy 10 million years ago. When you executed Kalen Vance, you rang a bell, Admiral. You woke them up." The main screen shifted. It showed a star chart of the galactic core. Red dots were appearing, thousands of them, millions, swarming outward like locusts. "They are coming for the Concordat," Thorn said. "They detect high-energy civilizations and harvest them. You drew their attention. Your fleets are obsolete against them. Your shields are paper." Kalen tried to warn the Council to stop using singularity tech, to stop ringing the bell. You killed him for it. Now the harvest has begun. Thrakos stared at the red tide on the map. He felt small. The politics of the Synod, the arrogance of Vrexel, the pride of the fleet, it all dissolved into ash. "We are doomed," he whispered. "Not yet," Thorn said firmly. "We have prepared. The Ethelgard is now the first vessel in a new fleet. We have retrofitted your ship remotely with our shielding algorithms and our targeting matrices. It is now capable of damaging the old machines, but we cannot fight this alone. We have the technology, Admiral, but you have the numbers. You have the fleets. We need you to take this ship back to the Synod." We need you to show them what we have done. Show them that humanity is not their enemy. We are their armory. You would trust us, Thrakos asked, incredulous. After we killed your envoy, after I came here to commit genocide. We don't trust you, Admiral, Thorn said, his voice hard as diamond. We trust math, and the math says that if we fight each other, the old machines win. If we fight together, we have a 43% chance of survival. We prefer those odds. Thorn paused, his expression softening slightly. And there is one more thing. Kalen Vance left a message for you, specifically for you, Thrakos. A file opened on the Admiral's terminal. It was a voice recording, time-stamped minutes before the execution. Thrakos played it. The voice of the human was calm, warm, even. Admiral Thrakos, if you are listening to this, then I am dead. And if you are listening to this on Earth, it means you brought the big ship. Good, you're a warrior, Thrakos. You respect strength. My people are strong, but we are tired of being alone. Don't fight them. Let them help you. The galaxy is a dark forest, and there are wolves in the trees. We've built a fire. Come sit by it and sharpen your sword. The message ended. Silence returned to the bridge of the Ethelgard, but it was not the silence of fear. It was the silence of understanding. Thrakos looked at his hands, the hands of a killer now holding the potential to be a savior. He looked at the crew. The Sion officer was no longer weeping. She was looking at the tactical display with wide, awed eyes. The engineer was running diagnostics, muttering about efficiency ratings he had never dreamed possible. Thrakos stood up. He felt the weight of the moment, the crushing gravity of history shifting its course. He looked at Director Thorn on the screen. Director, Thrakos said, his voice formal, stripping away the arrogance, leaving only the soldier. The Ethelgard stands ready, but my government, the Synod, they will not listen to words. They will see my return as a failure. They will listen, Thorn said, because you aren't going back alone. We are sending an escort, not to conquer, but to testify. Through the viewport, the clouds above the Ethelgard parted. Descending from the upper atmosphere came a ship. It was not large, perhaps a tenth the size of the Ethelgard, but its design was unlike anything the galaxy had seen. It was a perfect sphere of chrome liquid metal, rotating silently, reflecting the world around it. It hummed with a power that made the sensors scream. The Vanguard, Thorn said. It will accompany you. It carries the data, the plans, and the proof of the old machines, and it carries the next envoy. Treat him better than the last one, Admiral. Thrakos bowed his head, a gesture he had never performed for an alien. I swear it on my blood, the Ethelgard will be the shield of the Alliance. Then go, Thorn commanded. The bell has been rung, the wolves are coming, make sure the galaxy is awake when they arrive. The link severed, Thrakos turned to his helm officer. Take us out of the atmosphere, gentle thrust, do not damage their city. Yes, Admiral. As the Ethelgard rose, lifting its shadow from the city of Geneva, Thrakos watched the blue world recede. He had come to Earth as an executioner, wielding the weapon of a petty, frightened empire. He was leaving as a messenger, carrying the fire of a species that had looked into the abyss and learned how to build bridges across it. The galaxy had executed a human envoy, and in return, humanity had saved the galaxy's soul. The irony was bitter, but it was also hope. And as the warp drive engaged, no longer sickening but singing with a new, perfect harmony, Admiral Thrakos allowed himself a single, grim smile. The old machines were coming. And for the first time in 10 million years, the galaxy would not face them with fear. It would face them with humanity. The journey back to Oakmar was faster than the journey out. The human modifications to the warp drive had compressed the travel time by a factor of 10. The Ethelgard and its spherical escort, the Vanguard, tore through the subspace lanes like comets. Thrakos spent the time in deep conference with the AI of the human ship. He learned of the enemy. The Reapers, the Harvesters, the Great Filter, humanity had many names for them, but the reality was singular. A swarm of automated destruction programmed to reset galactic civilization whenever it reached the threshold of singularity manipulation. The Concordat had walked blindly into the trap, and their arrogance had almost snapped the jaws shut. When they arrived at the T-Haller system, the situation had already deteriorated. The sensors picked up the panic before they even established visual contact. The defensive fleets of the Concordat were in disarray. Sectors of the outer perimeter were going dark. The old machines were not waiting. They were probing the defenses, their needle ships piercing the Concordat's shields with terrifying ease. Hail the High Justicar, Thrakos ordered as they broke real space. The face of Wrexel appeared on the screen. The haughty arrogance was gone, replaced by a jittery terror. Thrakos, you have returned. Did you destroy them? Did you burn the humans? We are under attack. Unknown assailants. They are bypassing our... Silence, Vrexel, Thrakos barked, his voice booming with a new authority. I did not burn the humans, I have brought them. Traitor, Vrexel screeched. You allied with the primitives while our empire burns. I allied with the architects of our survival, Thrakos retorted. Stand down your fleet's targeting scanners, the sphere accompanying me as a friend. If you fire upon it, you will doom us all. They are firing on the outer buoys, a panic-stricken aide shouted in the background of Vrexel's feed. The enemy, they are here, in the system. Thrakos looked at the tactical map. A rift had opened near the edge of the asteroid belt. From it poured the old machines, sleek black shapes that absorbed light, moving with the jerky, insectoid precision of total automation. There were thousands of them. They fell upon the Concordat's patrol cruisers like piranhas, stripping shields and hull in seconds. General alert, Thrakos commanded his crew. Engage the enemy, show them the upgrades. The Ethelgard surged forward, placing itself between the Concordat capital station and the swarm. Thrakos felt the ship hum with the new power. Target the lead swarm, he ordered. Fire main batteries. This time, the beams that erupted from the Ethelgard were not the clumsy, wasteful singularity bolts of before. They were focused, coherent lances of exotic particles, tuned by human algorithms to destabilize the molecular bonds of the enemy alloy. The beams struck the lead wave of the old machines. The black ships didn't just explode. They unraveled, turning into clouds of harmless dust. On the screen, Vrexel watched, his mandibles slack with shock. Impossible, he whispered. We have fired everything at them. Nothing worked. You were firing stones, Thrakos muttered. Now we are firing logic. Beside the Ethelgard, the human sphere, the vanguard, finally acted. It did not fire weapons. Instead, it pulsed. A wave of blue light rippled out from the sphere, passing through the Ethelgard and the Concordat fleet without harm. But when it hit the old machines, chaos ensued. The automated ships faltered. They collided with one another. Their formations broke. Electronic warfare, the tactical officer reported, grinning wildly. The human ship is broadcasting a virus. It's a logic plague. It's confusing their IFF transponders. They are attacking each other. Press the advantage, Thrakos roared. All ships form up on my beacon, follow the Ethelgard, drive them back into the rift. It was a slaughter, but for the first time it was the enemy being slaughtered. The Concordat fleet, rallied by the sight of their flagship decimating the invaders, poured fire into the confused swarm. The Ethelgard was a juggernaut, wading through the enemy fire, its human-enhanced shields flaring but holding firm. Thrakos felt a savage joy. This was war as it was meant to be fought, not bullying the weak, but standing against the dark. For 6 hours, the battle raged. The debris of the old machines littered the system. Finally, the remaining enemy ships, realizing the tactical disadvantage, retreated back into the rift, sealing it behind them. Silence fell over the T-Haller system once more, but it was not the silence of the tomb. It was the heavy, panting silence of survivors. Thrakos turned the Ethelgard back toward the Grand Synod. Open a channel to the High Justicar. Vrexel appeared. He looked diminished, small, the elity of his near death, and the undeniable power of the human alliance had shattered his world view. Admiral, Vrexel said quietly, the sphere, the human ship, it is hailing us. Answer it, Thrakos said. The screen split. On one side, Vrexel, on the other, the bridge of the Vanguard. A young woman stood there. She wore the uniform of the Human Diplomatic Corps. She looked remarkably like Kaylin Vance. I am Envoy Ilara Vance, she said, her voice ringing clear in the chamber of the Synod. Niece of the man you murdered, I have been authorized by the Terran Directorate to formalize the terms of our alliance. Vrexel flinched at the word murdered, but he did not object. He looked at the ruined ships of his fleet, then at the pristine hull of the Vanguard. We welcome you, Envoy, Vrexel stammered. We are grateful for the assistance. Gratitude is cheap, Justicar, Ilara said coldly. We do not want your gratitude, we want your cooperation. The old machines will return. This was a scouting party. When the main fleet arrives, we will need every ship, every resource, and every soldier this Concordat can muster. We will provide the technology. We will provide the strategy. You will provide the logistics and the manpower. And you will never, ever execute a messenger again. Vrexel nodded, a slow, deep bow of submission that he had never performed in his life. We agree to your terms. Thrakos watched the exchange, feeling a profound sense of closure. The galaxy had changed today. The hierarchy had been toppled not by conquest but by necessity. The humans had not sought to rule, but by virtue of their burden they had become the leaders. Later, Thrakos met with Alara Vance aboard the Vanguard. The airlock cycled, and the massive admiral stepped into the human ship. It smelled of coffee and ozone. Alara stood waiting for him. She was small compared to him, fragile, yet her presence filled the room. "You have your uncle's eyes," Thrakos said softly. "And you have his ship," she replied, gesturing to the viewport where the Ethelgard floated, repairing its minor battle scars. "He always said that ship was beautiful in a terrifying way. He hoped it would be on our side one day." "He knew," Thrakos asked. "He knew he would die." "He knew the price of waking you up," Alara said. "He was willing to pay it. Humanity has been fighting the quiet war against the dark for a long time, Admiral. We were lonely. We needed friends, even if those friends had to be dragged kicking and screaming into the light." Thrakos chuckled a low rumble. "We are awake now, Envoy, and we are armed." "Good," Alara said, looking out at the stars where the rift had closed. "Because the night is long and we have miles to go before we sleep." Thrakos stood beside her, the alien warlord and the human diplomat, watching the galaxy turn. The misunderstanding was over. The revenge had been transfigured into redemption, and in the face of the encroaching dark, the galaxy had found its sword and its shield. The execution of a human envoy had been the end of an era, but the arrival of the dangerous ship had been the beginning of a future. A future where, for the first time, the stars were not cold and indifferent, but burning with the fire of a united defiance. The humans had landed not to take revenge, but to take charge. And the galaxy, in its terrified wisdom, had finally learned to follow.